go back to what you were talking about earlier. You were talking about kind of being a good enough skater, this, that, whatever. I want to get your thoughts on some advice that I gave to a player a few days ago. And I think this will kind of lead into kind of the other stuff you want to talk about nicely. So, a lot of these guys are looking for like junior camps. The draft is coming up, whatever. So we're having conversations. And I was talking to a player the other day, and he was asking about things he could work on. Okay, so all these things are coming up, and this is like the time that people are evaluating themselves and whatever. And so we were talking about some of his deficiencies from a skill perspective specifically, and he was asking what I thought the deficiencies were and what he thought I should do about them, or what he thought I should. What am I saying? What do I think he should do about them? So we talked about it, and I ended up saying to him, when you're thinking about improving some of your deficiencies, you don't necessarily have to turn your deficiency all the way into a strength. The way that I talk about it is, or I was talking about it, is it just needs to be good enough, right? So if you are, let's say you're not a good skater, because this is like the most damaging criteria. If you're not a good skater, that's going to be something that everyone always has as a knock on you kind of thing. You don't have to make it something that is your best, but you need to remove it as a question when people are evaluating you as a player. So I was kind of saying to him, if you want to, really improve your shooting, like you don't need to turn into a sharpshooter, right? But it needs to be good enough that people don't question it. So it just needs to blend. Like this is an example of where if you can pull your deficiencies up to where they just blend in, then your strengths and the strengths you have stand out. Then you can think about that in a way to structure how you're going to train. So if you want to spend time improving X, Y, or Z, your mindset doesn't, and I'm not saying it can't be, it could be, I want to turn it into a strength, and that's fine. But it could also be, I just needed to get to a certain level where it no longer is a question, but it doesn't necessarily need to be, wow, what a skater. Because there are some guys, like most of the really good skaters that I know, there's a little bit of an unearned element to it, where a lot of them are just, and you've said this a lot before too, of just like they're just a good skater, and they started as a good skater, and they were a good skater when they were a little kid before there was any teaching. They could just skate well. And so can you ever train to get yourself to be like that? Maybe you can improve it, but I don't know if you could ever be like the best skater. So I think just to be precise about how you think about improving some of those deficiencies, that might be a good way of thinking about it. Just, I need this skill to become good enough. I don't need it to be something that is the best. And so I was talking to him about this because he's a kid that has a lot of work to do on a lot of these skills. And it could maybe be overwhelming. Like, how much time are you going to spend on your skating? How much time can you spend on your shooting and stick handling and all this stuff? How much money can you put into it and resources and all that? And so that was kind of my advice. It was like, there's a lot of things to work on. Get them to a point where they're good enough. You don't have to turn them into something that's amazing about your game necessarily.
It's funny when you just talk about a player like that, I have no idea who you're talking about. But when you say that, like all these different things that he has to work on, which every youth player has to work on a lot of things. So two things. One thing you were talking about, make your shot doesn't have to be great, it just has to blend in. So side note on that, I just want to go there because I was thinking about it. I go, it's so funny how people work their shot and they go in the driveway and it's like, I gotta have a better shot. You just, moms and dads, shoot your pucks, and it's like, it's good. You'll never hear me say that's a bad thing to do. But what's so funny is that so many people actually can shoot a puck really well, and they got the 75 flexes where they don't even have to put any effort in, and they can they learned how to use the stick and stuff like that to rip a puck off. A lot of them don't hit the net, which is actually, that's not the best. But my point to that is, like, so many people work on their shot, but in a game they can never get a shot off because they don't know how to get into areas, or they don't get into the areas to shoot or whatever. So it's like, the reason I said that is because if I flip it to what you just said is, when you have all those things to work on, what that tells me is that player doesn't do anything real well. Maybe he does. I don't know who you're talking about. But so if you don't do anything if your skating's not really outstanding, if your shot's not getting him off, you're not scoring a lot of goals, then what that tells me is that you're a player that's better. You better understand how to play the game so that So what is that? What is playing the game? It's like really understanding defensive, like the little things of the game. So like it's the ugly parts of the game that makes you beautiful, right? It's the back checking. It's disrupting plays and hitting and getting your own zone and going to the net. Those things you better be really, 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 really good at if you want a chance to move on at all, right? So that way, maybe you don't have the best shot, but because you get your ass to the net as a forward, you don't need the best shot because you could get your 12 goals a year with a shovel, which is makes you a good hockey player, right? Because you're in that ugly area. So it's like understanding that too. So a lot of people that, and I would never say don't try to get better at your skills because it's very, very important. You just play if you the better that you can play the game, then as your skill progresses, then you can do those things, you can play the game, and now your skill gets better. Now you can do extra. Does that make sense?
So don't lose your train of thought if you have something else to say. Just to maybe sharpen up my point a little bit. My point of saying what I was saying is not to say be vanilla, because that's we have that criticism of people all the time. It's like you're vanilla. Everything you do blends. My point assumes you have certain strengths. So if a scout is watching you or a coach is watching you and they say, yeah, I really like this, this, and this. This is awesome. But there's this, and this deficiency that needs to be improved, or that could be a problem, or could make me not want to pick them or take them or whatever. That's the scenario I'm talking about. If you're not strong at anything, well, what are we talking about, right? So this assumes like you have a set of strengths that are clearly identified as strengths. You have a set of weaknesses that are clearly identified as weaknesses. It's like make those weaknesses not so clear is my point, right? Bring them up to a level where like it's not a glaring weakness. So if you're really not a good passer, get it to a point where no one is looking at you saying, yeah, he's not a good passer. You want it to be like, I got to dig to find some problems with your game, right? So that's more of the scenario I'm outlining. I'm not saying get everything to the point where it's vanilla and blends in. It's like, no, you want to have your set of strengths and what makes you a good player that a coach or a team identifies. And then with the weaknesses that you have, because everyone has them, work on them enough that they become not a weakness. They don't have to be a strength, but make sure that they're not a weakness. That's kind of more what I'm pointing at.
So let's say you're whatever team, let's say from the NHL level, and it's like whatever deficiency. So maybe it's skating. The first set of eyes on you are saying, don't know if you can skate well enough. So if the second set of eyes or third set of eyes come down and watch and they don't mention that, then you got through. You slid through.
Exactly.
Like you're good enough.
Right.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And because we talk about that with skating the most, where there are people that's the first thing you jump to is like, can they skate well enough? Make sure that's not a question. They don't have to say, wow, you skate like Connor McDavid, but you want to make sure that they're not saying, yeah, I don't know if you can skate well enough. Right. So like that was kind of like the what I was giving to this player, so that it's not, because it can be overwhelming. Like there's so much stuff to work on. You only have so many hours. You only have so much money to spend on specific training. Maybe there's only so much you could do on your own. And it's going to be some kind of blend of all these different things to work on it. But when you go into a training session or whatever, this was the last piece that I gave him, was just like have an intention for what you want to work on. So let's say you need to work on being a better, like you have problems catching passes in a certain area of the ice, or to get a shot off quick, whatever, off a pass. Whatever Coach Andy, this is what I said to him, whatever Coach Andy's showing you on the ice, like make sure you're focused on that. But you should also
that's the biggest issue with most guys.
Yeah, well, but you should also have an intention for yourself. Like when you go onto the ice, this is what I wanted to really, really hone in on today. It's like maybe it's just at the start of the drill, a quick start, because people say, well, I don't know, he takes too long to accelerate or whatever. You could work on that every single time a drill starts.
Every single rep.
And
every time you turn.
And that doesn't take away. That doesn't take away from paying attention to what you're saying, right? So so that was kind of my other piece. Is like have a specific thing when you go into a session that I'm going to really make sure this is a focus for me, in addition to whatever it is your skills coach or coach is showing you. And that way you're kind of drilling those weak parts and try to bring them up. So, so you think that's decent advice would be my question.
It's fantastic advice.